G'day gang. Whew. Breather. I finally finished putting wood on the shelves and putting my stuff away. Even though I think the shelf is going to go under there. Because this post is going. Yeah, I'm just going to run a strong beam from there to there. Because it's in the way. It's not good. Yeah. So I'm just gonna have to run a beam. I think it's in the way. It's annoying. I'll find out when this Jeep is outside and I bring it in and park it here. Because that's what's in the way when you try and use this ramp. Otherwise it's fine. It's just you always have to get around here, see? When you drive in, I mean, you can open that more, but the front of this is always in the way to get a straight line. Otherwise, it's okay. Just that the roof still needs to go up a bit. I think it's about 500 millimeters that I can still extend the lift. So, but, ooh, doesn't that look neat? Using the gearbox as a workhorse to cut wood for the shelves. These shelves just came with a metal mesh. You can't use metal mesh as shelves. Come on, man. So I had some plywood left over that I chopped up. And now I can put stuff on there without it falling through and getting hooked. So, making less mess there. Remember, that was like piled up on the floor. All that stuff was sitting on the floor in front of the shelves. Now I've got all this stuff here. Still got loads to go. Bear with me. It'll take me about a week, I think. Wowzers. I can't wait to get the gearbox up on the shelf there, on the counter. And then start putting the bell housing onto the gearbox. The clutch and flywheel will be sent from US, I think the 2nd of July, something like that, or maybe the 5th of July. So they'll be here in a few weeks, I imagine. And then I can measure the clutch. I found out about the clutch. Remember, I had questions about it and I asked if anybody of you guys knew. Let's bring it out. I know now. Okay. There's a spring here because, yes, this bearing spins with the clutch engine all the time. So basically when your clutch is worn out, you replace this. And I guess if it's quality enough. In the old days, there's no way you could make a bearing to last like that. I remember, were they called thrust bearings? Were they called thrust bearings? I think so. Because they thrust up against the clutch. From memory. It's a long time since I've done one. Because, although, you know, time. So, yeah, it feels nice. This feels good. Yeah, so this stays on. This here is a bleeder, right? You can get them with single, but you basically have to make sure it's no air in there when you install it. This one you can bleed. So, and this is the inline bleed line. I wonder why the inline didn't have a nice hose on it, but hey, that's the brakes. So, this part has been sorted. Clutch is activator. Yeah, is sorted. I know now. And depending on the clutch, being a twin plate, it may or may not need a spacer between the gearbox and this. This needs to be compressed by 15 millimeters when it's touching. It needs about 15 millimeters to activate. If the gap is too big, it'll pop off, and if it's too small, you'll wear the bearing out in no time. So we need 15 millimeters of interference between the bearing and the fingers, so it's compressed by 15 millimeters when it's attached. So that'll be when you're bolting when you're bolting it up to the engine, you have that pressure on it, so it'll make it feel different. You've also got the front of the gearbox going into the spigot bush. Spigot bush, what do we used to call it? It was something different. What was it called again? What do you think? Yeah, it's the little brass bush that goes in here. I forget what that was called. It wasn't spigot bush, but I think online they called it a spigot bush. So yeah. So this is an 8-bolt. The others are 6-bolt. So I've got an 8-bolt flywheel coming, and cross our fingers, all the dimensions will be the same. If not, I have to modify the flywheel. So it's a 8-bolt Gen 3 Hemi flywheel, manual. And hopefully that's all good. And a twin plate clutch, solid plate. I hope I didn't make a mistake with the solid plate. Should have gone for the spring loaded, which is a bit more comfortable, but I'm pretty good with a clutch. Bang! Into gear. I've never driven a solid friction plate before. Always the spring loaded one, so we'll see. If that's a mistake, it's a mistake. I have to change it. I think it'll be alright. Will it be hard on the gearbox? I don't know. Maybe I just need to be more gentle with my clutch foot and just get used to using it. Not 100% sure. But I have seen under high power situations, I've seen the spring loaded friction plates destroyed. So there's always that, you know, the springs need to take a lot of beating, so you know, but this clutch is supposed to handle 1250 foot-pounds of torque, so should be plentiful, you know. So like I was talking to Christian the other day when I picked up the gearbox. He said, you know, nowadays, you know, 1,000 horsepower with 4 or 6 cylinders, you know, you're pushing. He said, but once you start 8, you know, or 12 cylinders, he said it becomes easy. So, and he said because it's got a short stroke, this engine, which is good for revving. It's got a short stroke. He said it will be a lot easier on the conrod. So, being a short stroke, those conrods I've ordered should be fine. And I said to him, I'll have to come and sit down with you and work out all the bits I need for the turbo. Ooh, just thinking about the cost of it all. Eesh. But, you know, that's no hurry. Please subscribe and like so I can afford this stuff. Because that will be pushing my budget a lot. So I'm hoping by doing this, YouTube will help finance this build. And funny enough, my wife, I remember I talked last time about my daughter who said, no Dad, don't buy a new car, fix the old one. My wife goes, you know, That money, you could have brought a new car for that. I said, yes, but that's not the point, honey. A woman will not understand a man's fascination with cars and making them your own. Like this vehicle, I think I originally brought it 1200 with a broken motor. 1200, then I fixed it up. I drove it for years, right? Then it had a problem, so we had some money, so we quickly brought another one, the silver one, the Overland, and we drove that now 5 years, at least 5 years. I mean, that is cheap motoring. That cost 2.2 running, 2,200 back then. I think it's more than 5 years now, actually, to be honest. And I've put in a second hand from a Jeep I've got for wrecking steering box. I've given it services, a steering box. I fixed the door wiring harness in those years. That's it. I've done nothing else to it but service it. You know, that is good motoring, you know. When you, buy a vehicle on finance, you're paying every month, and then the vehicle becomes worth less. You know, so the vehicle becomes worth less over time. And you're still paying that same amount, you know, for 3 to 5 years. So this is one time I can build exactly what I want. Yes, I could have brought not a brand new Grand Cherokee for sure, no, but I could have brought a good second-hand one, but then I would have brought someone else's problems. You know, don't forget, they're selling it for a reason, and most of the time is because it needs work and it's not worth it to them. Or in another case, they could be in financial dire straits and need to sell it, which is also possible. You know, but there's a reason people sell vehicles, and a lot of the time it's because there's something wrong with it or they're not happy with it, and then you're buying it. This one here had a busted motor. It was beyond his ability to fix it. He had a go at it, started pulling it apart, but quit, gave up. So I got it with a motor that was pulled apart and put it back together, and I like the motor. I don't know why people don't like this motor. It's a strong, tough little block. I mean, it doesn't have bearing caps, it's got an entire bed plate. Never seen that before. That's the first engine I've worked on that had that. And if you follow the channel, you'll see what I mean. It's one big, huge part, like the block is split in half, and that holds the crank in. Amazing. Great idea. No little bearing caps to worry about. Basically, the whole bottom of the block holds the crank in place. Yeah. I don't think that can fail. I just don't think. I don't ever heard of it failing. Never heard of a crank failing on one of these, mind you. I've rebuilt one that had a stuffed crank because the bearings wore out because, you know, they put thick oil in it. So I'm having a talk to you and a rest at the same time from cutting wood and stacking the shelf. I've got to sort up upstairs. There's some parts up there I want to put up on the shelves, but I really think those shelves more than likely will end up further up, out of the way from the car when you're walking past the vehicle. Maybe not. That gearbox for sure is not in a good place. That needs to be moved. Maybe move the gearbox where the car is now, and this stuff, because when the vehicle's in here, the front end is right here, and you're kind of squeezing between that stuff to walk around it. And it's not a huge shop. It's 6 meters by 10 meters, I believe, 6 by 10. It's not huge by all means, but it's big enough if it's sorted nicely. Some of the tubs I'm keeping, a lot of the smaller ones I'm throwing out. Because nuts and bolts, and these square ones are great for when you put your different bolts in, the head bolts, the crank bolts, the put parts in with bolts. They're great tubs. Handy to have. All the other mixed ones I've thrown out. The small stuff, which I thought would be handy, but nah, just too many of them. Way too many of them. So, update on the build. Now, if the workshop had been cleaned already, I would be starting. But I don't want to start until the workshop is tidy. Is that wrong? I don't want to work in this mess. I don't. I hate it. It became that way because I got sick, and I would come in here, grab things, and I'd be too tired to put it back. You have no idea how sick I was for a couple of years. It was extreme. Yeah. So even now, this is hard. So every clip I do, I need to pay for with pain. I have to pay for it in pain. But I love it. You know, it keeps me going. I enjoy it. So it'd be silly not to. You know, I don't want to just sit and do nothing. So that's another reason, you know, the money's. Yes, could have brought a vehicle, and then what then? I just service it once in a blue moon. I'll end up, like I said the other time, I'll end up modifying it again. I'll end up with the same problem. It's just in my DNA. Modding is in my DNA. I'm sure if they find the DNA and they look at all the major modders in the world, they'll find sections of DNA that match. That all us modders have. DNA. Modders DNA. Anyway, I'll catch you later. This was today's upload. I hope you learned something, like from the clutch. Because I did. Took me a while to find it, but yeah, quite a few YouTube clips and researching, and I finally found it is a bleeder. I had to look at Mel Wood at his YouTube channel. I found the information there about bleeding it, and about about the pressure staying on the spring and how to set it up. You would have thought there would have been some of that information in the box, but there wasn't. So I found it online. And the internet is amazing. It can also be terrifyingly horrible because people use it for the wrong reasons and say the wrong shit. So anyway, till next time, bye bye.